ng isang product review. Ayan, ito siya, no, yung last time. So key things to remember about product review is it makes use of a lot of multimedia as well. So when we communicate our feedback, it's not just about the words that we type on the screen, but also the videos. You can also make use of photos, okay? And here's a possible layout for a product review. Okay, that sells, may ganun pa eh, no? And sometimes kasi people earn from writing reviews eh, di ba? Because they are very credible and authoritative, balanced, and factual in their writing of reviews. A lot of companies come to them because people believe what they say. So if you want to be that kind of person someday, like you want to be an authoritative voice when it comes to, say, a certain line of makeup, for those of you who like makeup, or whatever product you choose to focus on, make sure that you expose yourself to a lot of information regarding the product or the environment or the needs of the products you're trying to review. Okay, so hopefully we get to do that in this class. We get to write a review that, somehow follows this outline. Okay, we started also with this one by trying our hands in writing some catchy titles. Okay, so I ask you to go to www.menti.com and ask you to enter this code on the screen. Bagong code na yan, hindi na siya yung code last week. Nag-iiba kasi siya after 24 hours. So, I didn't know that. So, I realized that now. And so, some of you might have tried to do some of the writing exercise. Kung ginawa niyo at hindi niyo siya nagawa because of trouble with the code, apologies. So, the new code is on the screen. Pakita ko yung mga catchy titles na ginawa niyo. Okay, ito yung mga catchy titles na inyong shinare from last week. Presentation mode nga natin to para makita natin. So, anong nakalagay dun sa template natin? Sa product review, excellent title. Mention the name of the product. So, it's important that you mention the name of the product in the title. Kasi pag sinearch yan ng mga customer, syempre, ang una nilang itatype yung name ng product. Okay? Ano pa ba? It kind of already says your review of the product in 1 or 2 words. So it takes a little bit of skill to do this. Like, how do you say or show your review in very few words, in the title, when you're limited to, usually a title is limited to mga 10 words, 1 line in a page, isang lines. Wag naman masyadong mahaba yung title, no? Siguro mga 1 line. Ganon. So that would be siguro mga 10 to 15 words. Pwede na yan, yung limit, no? Okay, so some good examples here that you wrote. Hindi yung sinulat ko, yung what that you wrote, I think, is this one. If you think Mr. Briggs is an ordinary restaurant, you are very wrong. So I like this title kasi it does mention the name of the restaurant, and then it's kind of inviting. It accuses the reader of being very wrong if they think it's an ordinary restaurant. So it's kind of inviting as a title. I also like they say Gatorade is the best energy drink in the country, and here is why. One thing probably I would suggest to this title is you can say, here are 10 reasons why. Ayan. So you can like say a number of the number of reasons, no? Not just one. Actually, in the what's this? In SEO or search engine optimization writing, meaning you're writing articles to make your article go up in the Google search. One of the tricks that they do is what they call listicle. Listicle. So a listicle is basically a type of article that lists things, no? Because the reason why this has come about is because Google tend to increase the relevance of articles that lists things. Kasi very practical yun, useful information for people. So, meron diyang isang format of a title that kind of mimics this. 10 reasons why you should get an iPhone 13. So that's you're potentially looking at a listicle type of review. This coffee table is the best and most decorative one in the store. That's good title, okay? Kind of has a review and all that. And name of the product. Baka mas magandang, mas specific pa because coffee table is kind of generic, okay? This one is a very nice one too. Dyson wireless vacuum cleaner. It works. So I also like this one. Simple and catchy, mentions the title of the product, and also the very short 2-word review. Ayan, pwede din yan, ganyang format. Okay. Ayan. Pwede pala siya i-highlight. This is also a nice title actually. Why purchase this product? Ano lang, specific lang. Yung product na word, let's replace it with something more specific. Okay? Okay. I'm gonna go back to my original presentation. Yan. So yun yung ginawa natin. Recap lang from last week. Now, today, I will talk a little bit about, since we're gonna do online reviews, which is better if there are photos in it. Okay, it's always good, and it increases the attraction to your review kapag may mga videos at saka may mga photos ka. So let's start with photos, very basic. Today we're gonna talk about photo composition. And hindi lang the word composition doesn't apply to just writing, compose essays and paragraphs. We also compose photos. How does that work? Of course, we're not going to use words too much when we compose photos, but there are ways to compose a photo. Okay, so today it's all about photo composition. And when you travel, definitely you're going to carry with you your mobile phone, which you use for taking pictures, right? Of food, of people, of yourself in very nice tourist spots and wherever else, okay? Or activities nyo, di ba, to capture the moment and keep a memory of it as a remembrance. So we're gonna talk about this photo composition. Ito yung lesson natin today. Let's this was scheduled to be the second to the last lesson, that I decided, no, let's do it early para you can already practice and play around with it. Okay. Before we take any photo, if you're serious about sending a message with your photos, we have many reasons for taking photos. No, we take photo for souvenir. We take photo for capturing moments, but some serious photographers, they take photo to send a message. And of course, when we do product reviews, our message is either we like it or we don't. Basically, the message is boiled down to 2 types when it comes to reviews. Or maybe 3. I don't like it, I like it, so. Parang ganyan. I like it, but I also don't like it, and here's why. Parang ganyan. So my third message. So when it comes to photos, it's the same thing. You're also communicating a message, no? So if there's a product or a place or a food or a service that you really, really like, you tend to take really good photos of it, and you tend to take a lot of photos of it. But if you don't like it, also, if your review is somewhat in the negative side of the spectrum, you tend to focus and highlight more on the ugly parts. So, mga ganyan. that can guide how you compose your photos. Okay, so enough of Coach Joey talking about this topic. Let's listen to an expert in photography, no? And listen to his 8 tips for composing photos or composition. Sometimes you'll hear the word composition. And perhaps you might have heard of it, or not heard, rather, you might have come across this word in your phone when you're editing your photos. Usually makikita niyo yan, yung composition. You can manipulate the colors, the saturation, the angle, the framing. So these are things you can do when composing. Okay. Yeah, you can edit photos, no? But be careful, okay, when you edit photos, make sure that it doesn't compromise your message or the entire story. Okay? Baka mamaya, dahil na-offend lang tayo, no? Galit na galit tayo. Ang hinighlight lang natin yung yung ugly kahit may magaganda namang parts, no? So yun, careful lang tayo sa pag-edit. Okay. Before I go there, I just remember that I left you with another assignment nga pala to find that word that starts with the letter M dun sa video ng Amazon. Stop share ko muna to. Were you able to figure it out? Si Asina, na-figure out niya. Oo. Nagsisimula sa M. Oh, maganda din yung sagot ni Zara. Oo. Pero I'm looking for a particular word. Pero ano din, parang positive yung kay Zara. Sige, I think Athena is closest to getting it. Athena, can you please unmute your mic and give us your answer?
Manipulate.
Yes, manipulate. Ayan. So, the entire policies of Amazon rest with that word. They put together all those rules to avoid manipulation of feedback. Okay, so sometimes those that are selling products tend to manipulate customer feedback in order to increase their sales. Gitawag doon, syempre, simple word, cheating. So, pero fancy word is manipulate. Okay, so yun yung word po na hinahanap natin dun sa video. Thanks Athena and Zara for taking time to look for that word. So let's be careful that we don't manipulate when we do review, or we don't allow ourselves to be manipulated. Okay? Honest review lang. Okay? Sige. Or kayo din, kapag kayo naman yung on the other end of the rope, you are the one looking for review and reading review. Careful lang din when you read review, okay? Statistically, the more review you read, the better. So, social proof na tinatawag, you know? So, try to get from friends, from family, but also from third party. So, all of these things triangulated or compared, more or less you can have a more reliable, wiser decisions whether to buy or not. No? Para pala tong no, walang pinagkaiba sa pagka-canvas. When you go out there, buy a dress or sa shirt, women, ewan ko sa mga lalaki, no, kung may mga ganitong klaseng mga men, pero sa mga girls, mga ladies, usually they go out, they won't buy agad, but they will go around, shop, and canvas na dinatawag canvas. So parang nagka-canvas ka ng review. Okay. Okay. Going back to, so we're gonna pause a little bit from writing review, but we're gonna shift a little and talk about photography. Okay, here's a video on 8 composition tips from an expert in photography. Ay, teka lang. Reshare ko with the sound there.
This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website, a domain, or an online store, make it with Squarespace. So you're looking to improve your photography, and you're rightfully told that composition is the key to a great photo. You proceed to read up on compositional rules, and you realise that there's a lot to learn. The rule of thirds seems quite simple, but then there's the golden spiral, and you're not entirely sure how to use that. And then there's a grid that looks a bit like the third grid, but it's slightly different, and people call it the phi grid. It's got something to do with the Fibonacci sequence, but you're not quite sure. Leading lines seem quite simple, but then there are arabesques and leading lines that aren't straight, and then there's dynamic symmetry, and you're told about some maths that you don't quite understand, and you're not quite sure how to use the Baroque diagonal and the sinister diagonal and the reciprocal lines. And you're shown an Annie Leibovitz picture that seems to be overlaid with 3 of these dynamic symmetry grids in a row, and it all looks very complex and confusing. So you decide maybe it's best to look at those photos that inspired you to take up photography in the first place, and see how these rules apply to them. You examine bodies of work taken by a variety of well-respected photographers. You also look at contemporary photographic journals and a wealth of exciting imagery they offer. You look at shortlists for prestigious photographic awards, but you rarely find any examples that fit with these rules. In fact, most of these images almost seem to read like a case study of what not to do. Weren't you told not to centre your subjects? Why is there so much empty space above this person? Surely this background doesn't help this subject stand out at all. And by this point, you're confused and you're overwhelmed and you really don't know where to start. Maybe you should just go buy a new lens and see if that helps you take better photos. The problem is that composition is a massive subject, and learning all the grid systems and ratios is only one tool in your visual toolbox. I'll probably make other videos focusing on specific elements of composition in the future, but for now, let me give you 8 simple tips that will hopefully get you started on improving your composition. Number 1, get your position right. Every representational photograph has 2 key factors. Firstly, the position of your subject or subjects, and secondly, the position of the photographer, and by extension, the position of the viewer. Now, changing either one of these can change how your shot feels, what it means, what story it tells. Now, this may sound simple and obvious, but a lot of people really do overlook trying the same shot from different positions. Don't always default to shooting at eye level. It's how we see the world every day, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not always the most interesting angle. Once you've composed your shot, stop. Evaluate everything in your frame. Is everything exactly where you want it to be? Are there any elements or areas that shouldn't be there? If not, change it. Now, this may mean just taking a side step to the left or to the right. It may mean climbing up something to get a higher vantage point. It may mean crossing the street. Be vigilant and rigorous with yourself. A small bit of effort here can mean the difference between a mediocre shot and an absolute masterpiece. Remember to shoot portrait aspect ratio as well. Portrait aspect ratio draws attention to objects in the foreground, and use landscape format for a more natural feel, as we often use our eyes this way unless we're looking up at something tall. Take multiple shots in a variety of different ways. Push yourself out of your comfort zone a bit. It's all about finding that position where all the elements in your shot work together to create the feeling you are aiming for. 2. Use your phone. Most of us have a camera phone these days, and one of the biggest hurdles you have to overcome when learning how to compose and visualize an image is being able to translate what we see moving in 3D without these borders into a still, flat, 2-dimensional image. Because we have 2 eyes, we see 3-dimensionally, and so we have a greater perception of depth than a photograph can communicate. Our brains can easily filter out distracting background elements because we can see them as further away. But when you flatten that down to a 2D image, those distracting background elements can become much more prominent and take away from what you want the viewer to look at in your photograph. Using your phone screen to compose an image can be really helpful. When shooting on my Pentax 6.7, for example, if I'm using a black and white film, I'll often set my phone to black and white, and I'll pinch into the screen to match the field of view that my 105mm lens offers, which is around about a 50mm equivalent on a full frame camera. This way I can see the world framed and in 2D. I can see how colours translate into tone, and I can also tap different areas of the screen to see how the image would look if exposed for the highlights or for the shadows. This isn't cheating, it's using tools at our disposal to help us get the best shot possible. Think of this more like an exercise in learning. The more we practice shooting like this, the more we'll start to naturally translate what we see into a 2D composition. It's a great learning tool if you want to improve your ability to naturally visualize a photo in your mind's eye. Number 3, beware the rule of thirds. If you look up any tutorials, articles, tips on photographic composition, you will likely be met with the rule of thirds right at the top of the list. Now, the rule of thirds is a great little shorthand to start you thinking about composition, but understand just because you place a subject at one of those intersecting points of the grid, this won't guarantee you a balanced composition. You must think about your shot as a whole. One thing I see a lot when the rule of thirds is used is too much empty space on one side of the image. It can lead to the image feeling unbalanced. And there's also more to balancing your shot than where you place elements within the frame. Tone, colour and contrast also all have weight. Darkness feels heavier than light, saturated colour feels heavier than pale hues. Areas of extreme contrast draw the eye. When composing a shot, as well as lining things up mathematically, look for where the areas of contrast are, look for where the darker tones are. Consider how your image feels as a whole. Does it feel like it's tipping too much to the left or to the right? Consider compositional rules when finding the perfect place to take your shot from, but don't go against your gut feeling. If something feels right in a certain place but doesn't immediately make sense to you, then just go for it. There's probably a reason it works that you're not yet aware of. Compositional rules are like a scientific formula. You can use them in art, but first you must know why. If you want your image to look classical, use a classical compositional technique like dynamic symmetry, but you don't need to use these all the time. Learn them, but be mindful about when you use them. Don't fall back on them just because you know them. Think firstly about what you are saying before you decide how to say it. Number 4, a nice simple one. Whenever you're setting up a shot, squint or blur your eyes. This will help you see abstract colour and shape and form. We're so used as human beings to reading the world around us that sometimes it's very difficult to take that step backwards and look at it in a more abstract way. But squinting or blurring your eyes will help you see where the contrasty areas are. They'll help you see where the more saturated and the light areas are. And this can really help guide you in setting up a nicely balanced shot. 5. Think conceptually as well as aesthetically. Why are you shooting what you're shooting? What do you want your viewers to think when they see your shot? What do you want your audience to feel? Everything about the way you compose an image will tell part of a story. For example, the angle you shoot from can change how a subject is represented. Being up high looking down can detach the viewer emotionally. It becomes more of an overview shot, very matter of fact. It's a slightly godlike position, looking down on the world below. The viewer is a privileged observer and not part of the scene. But if you shoot from ground level, then you are part of the scene, and by extension, anyone viewing the shot. A low shot looking up at a subject can give that subject a sense of dominance and of power. Cropping in close to someone's face can make a shot feel more intimate and more claustrophobic. Having a subject surrounded by a lot of space can make them feel more vulnerable and more defined by their environment. Sometimes moving further away or using a wider lens can add some wider story to your shot. Decide whether context is important. Are you making social or political commentary about the subject you're shooting? You might want to consider showing something in relation to its surroundings. But when making your subject smaller in the frame, be careful, as your subject should probably still be the focal point of your image. You can achieve this by using light, contrast, colour, leading lines, or any of the other tried and tested techniques to draw the viewer's eye to your subject. Maybe employing those mathematical compositional rules will make your image feel perfectly balanced. But what if you don't want it to feel perfectly balanced? What if you want your viewer to feel uneasy because of the subject matter of the photograph? Always consider what you want your image to say before you decide how to say it. 6. Keep it simple. In slight contrast to my previous point about showing wider context, a really common compositional mistake I see is people including too much irrelevant detail in the frame. Everything in the frame should be relevant, it should be part of the story. If it's not, get rid of it. Look for simplified backgrounds, for fewer distracting elements. Try making your subject fill the frame. The act of composing a shot is in itself a form of editing. Your audience won't know what they can't see. Throwing stuff away can be difficult, but it can also be very liberating. 7. Watch the edges. Pay particular attention to the borders of your frame. Try not to cut off people's elbows or the top of someone's hair or the top of trees or buildings or whatever it is you're photographing. Distracting elements at the edge of the frame can draw the viewer's eye away from your point of focus, so try and keep them clean. 8. Work in post. Don't be afraid to also work in post-production to get that perfect composition. You can crop, you can re-level your image. Of course, it's better to do it in camera, but you have quite a lot of options in post-production. Taking time to compose your shot is important, but so is not missing the moment. The more you crop in post, the better you will become at judging composition in camera. Try testing your shot by flipping the image into a mirrored view. Try inverting the colours, try turning it upside down. Does it still feel balanced? And while cropping in post is great, also don't be afraid to Photoshop out elements that are making your shot unbalanced or creating tension by being too near the edge. If there's something brightly coloured in the background that's drawing your eye from the subject, change its colour, desaturate it, or simply clone it out. That's why the clone stamp is there. Steve McCurry does this all the time. You could argue it's cheating, and by all means follow your own set of ethics and values, but be aware that you are making things harder for yourself. It's up to you. But the key thing here is practice. There are so many compositional rules that you can't possibly consciously think about every single one every time you take any photograph. But do take time to learn them. Do take time to practice them. Learn one at a time. Go out and try practicing that particular one. And eventually you'll kind of absorb them all and they will become kind of a natural part of your intuitive visual understanding. So a massive
Okay, dami niyang binigay na tips sa composition, ano? But if you notice, he wasn't very technical about it. He gave really very practical ones. So, I just recall, okay, what you've heard from the video, and I have a question for you, just to process what you've heard and watched. In the chat, I would like you to share one or maybe two tips that were helpful for you. So there were 8 mentioned. Okay, so try to remember and recall ano yung pinaka-helpful doon sa akin or most remembered mo na mga tips niya. Pakilagay po sa chat. And please direct it to everyone. Wag na pong direct message sa akin. Ha? We're all here to learn together. So don't share it to me. Share it to everyone. Okay? So please, Athena, type again your answer and address it to everyone. Okay? Not as a direct message to me. Okay. Thank you. Get the position right. Keep the edges clean. Very good. Oo, kasi yung mga edges, ano, they will distract from the subject. Very good. The picture needs to be balanced. Yes, oo. Sometimes this balance thing is it's like something that it's based on feeling, ano? Kahit i-follow mo yung mga rules ng composition sa photography, depende pa din sa message. Doon sa sinabi niyang video, I really like what he said about this when he said, the rules of the composition, the grids, the lines, all of these things, they help achieve balanced photo. But what if your message is unbalanced, or you don't want your reader or the viewer of the photo, what if you don't want them to feel balanced about it? So you kind of violate these rules. Okay. In order to send that message. Again, it depends on your message. Very good. How about Charles? Do you have any tips there that you recall or remember or was most helpful to you? Perhaps new? Okay, you can still submit your answer, Charles. Pero sabi niya, no, towards the end of the video, even though he gave all of those 8 tips, he still encourages us to learn and practice the composition principles or rules, no. But I don't like we don't have to look at them as rules. We can look at them as guide for our eyes. Okay, and it's good to know how to do it first. Okay, according to the rules, and then tweak it a little bit if you like. Okay, so a lot of times many photographers, they go right ahead and violate the composition rules without learning them first. So it's good to practice first with them, and then later on, if you want, change it a little, okay, or digress from them, okay, intentionally. So we need to learn some of these normal composition rules, okay, practice with them, and then If you want, change them a little bit to suit your messaging. Okay? Remove something that makes the pictures that don't look good. Oo, yung pag-edit out, similar to what Athena said, you keep the edges clean. So sometimes less is more. And that negative space is sometimes helpful for putting text message, text later. Say for your title, article, di ba? Minsan helpful yung mga negative clean spaces sa photo mo for putting the text, title, or caption, mga ganon. Credits. Oh, you don't forget to use credits pala. If you're using someone else's photo, make sure you credit the source, okay? Don't pass it off as your own photo, okay? So make sure that you mention who owns the photo or credit the owner. See, credits to the owner, CTTO, okay? So remember that little acronym, very important. If you're using information or photos from other sources, you need to use that acronym. Ako, I go an extra mile by, sometimes, people just say CTTO and that's it. But they don't tell the source. Ako, I don't like that. I would like to still mention CTTO and then own the name of the source or the owner of the photo. Or photo by, okay? Always cite your source. Otherwise, you'll be given a notice of property rights infringement. Okay? Siguro ngayon, pag bata pa kayo, hindi pa okay pa, no? Hindi man kayo mamumultahan. But, if you get older, okay, you are above 18, and you try to, and you forgot to cite your source. Minsan, we forget, no? We forget to cite our sources or ask permission before we use their photo. We might get a court order, okay, or we might get fined with certain amount, okay, for violating intellectual property rights, because these photos are protected, copyrighted, they're protected by law, okay, in terms of intellectual property. So be careful. The best way is to create your own photo for your own review. That's the best and the safest way. Just create your own. Speaking of which, let's highlight some of the things that he said. Ano ba yung mga rules in photo composition that we can practice with this week? Okay, try to practice with some of this stuff. All right. I have here, I'm going to go by way of examples. I'm going to show lots of photos today, and I'm going to highlight the composition technique that was used for each of the photo. So here is the first one. Very, siguro nakakita na kayo ng maraming klaseng photo na ganito, no? Wherein, ang tawag sa composition na to ng photo is leading lines. Okay, leading lines. Wherein you use the lines, yeah, like the street, yung street, you use the environment to point to the subject. So in this case, the subject is here where the points converge. Siya yung subject ng photo. And if you notice, the lines of the street all meet to her, yung horizon line na tinatawag. So they all point to her. And your eyes, they're called leading lines kasi they lead the eyes of the person viewing the photo. Automatically, your eyes are drawn to the lady. And your eyes were drawn to that because of the leading lines. So that's one technique. You can try that. If you like, use your streets, go out with permission from your parents. You can use your photos for this, okay? And try to compose a photo using leading lines. Try nyo lang. Okay, so the guy, James, mentioned something about the rule of thirds. Okay, if you notice, medyo na iba na yung lines dito, no? This is a very common composition guide in taking photos. Your phones will have these grid lines, actually. So if you change the settings of your phone camera, you will be able to actually make your phone bring out this grid lines sa camera. When you take photos, you can use these grid lines. Now, what is the rule of third composition? Basically, the rule of third, it means that you place your subject doon sa points where the lines converge. Like ito, this one, ano? This point, ayan, itong point na to. Okay. So it divides the entire frame into 3 sections, horizontally and vertically, no? And your subject needs to be placed on these points. Ayan, for focus. For focus, again, for drawing the eye on your subject. Okay? So, this is a very good balanced photo because you have the trees placed on the converging points, and then you have a contrast here of a smaller tree. So, in the third converging point. So, may apat kasi dyan, no? So, but he did James did warn us about this rule. Sometimes, those who are very new in photography or photography students tend to have very, very wide negative space here na walang ng balance or contrast. But this is a good photo kasi may balance, ano, pa din siya. So it's not entirely empty, this space here. Okay. So that's the rule of thirds. So simple lang naman siya. Kung saan nagko-converge yung points, lagay mo doon yung subject mo. So you don't place your subject right smack in the middle if you're doing rule of thirds. Okay? Does it mean hindi mo kaya? Hindi pwedeng gawin yan, ha? Tawag lang sa kanya rule. You don't have to always follow the rule of third. Again, depending on how you would want your photo to appear to the audience. So that's the rule of thirds. You have leading lines, rule of thirds. Ano pa bang mga composition techniques natin? Ay, break ko lang ta. Feel free to bring out your cameras right now dun sa phone nyo and practice with some of these things I'm mentioning. The next photo here, eto, medyo complicated to i-discuss, ano? So you see a different kind of grid, different kind of lines. Medyo curvy line siya, no? Mayroon kang mga grid lines, mayroon ka rin mga curve that almost look like a seashell. And this is a mathematical composition naman. It follows an irrational number in mathematics. We call it the Fibonacci numbers. Okay. I will just send you a video of what it is. It will take a bit of time to explain what it is, but it's basically what it does is, ang sabi nila, ito yung fina-follow ng mga classical architects, mga Roman Empire times. A lot of the architecture in the ancient times follow the Fibonacci or the golden what's this? The golden ratio. Ang tawag dyan, golden ratio in mathematics. So basically, the ratio is, sige, like, type ko na lang din sa chat natin. 1:1.61 ... Kasi, ano yan, never-ending number 1.61 na yan. So, i-round off na lang natin. So, meaning to say, the Fibonacci, pag ginamit natin to as a layout or composition design rule, basically, gawa ka ng square. Okay, gawa ka ng square, itong square na to. Okay, one part of it is a square like this. Halimbawa, square yan, ano? Tapos, yung kalahati niyan, idadagdag mo dito sa side niya. So, parang golden rectangle siya. Ayan. So, let's just say that that's the, ano. Tapos, the idea is, kung ano yung, pag times 2 mo to, it will equal to the square of this one. Okay, so, and it's kind of a never-ending thing if you divide again into square. Ay, hindi pala dapat yan. So, Ganyan, ano? Ayan, medyo hindi sakto yung measurements ko, but it kind of looks like that. Pagbabalik ta rin natin yung seashell natin. Yan, parang ganyan siya, no? So basically, what you do is, in a Fibonacci design, yung subject mo, ilalagay mo siya doon sa where you have your ano, no, convergence ng mga points. Or yung pinakamaliit na square, if you like. In this photo's case, yung little, ang tawag dyan. I'm not sure what that bird is, but it's an avian animal. Okay. So parang ganun siya. It's not exactly rule of thirds. Medyo iba yung ratio nila. And guess what? This Fibonacci design is actually applied in the template I showed you last time. Ayan. Okay? So even sa layout, ina-apply yan, no? Wherein you have this part, okay? You have a square, then you have the title occupying the point one, basically. If you play, there's this game that you play, ano ba yung tinatawag na yun? Yung parang I forgot the name of the game. But it's an arcade game wherein may nagdo-drop ka ng numbers game siya. So, tas i-add niya yung block na yon, magi-increase yung sum ng block. Do you know what that game is called? Yeah, 2048. Exactly. Fibonacci works like that, like one by one, and then ang sum nun magiging square, magiging 2. Tapos yung 2 plus 1, pag inad mo magiging 3. Ayan. Tapos yung 2 at saka 3, pag inad mo, magiging 5. So, yung Fibonacci number sequence is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Nakita sa yung 5 plus 3, pag inad mo, 8. Yeah, so, ganun siya. Anyway, madalas siyang gamitin sa design kasi, and it's quite a mystery, sabi nila, ang Fibonacci design ay very pleasing to the eye ng mga tao. Perhaps that's because it appears in nature a lot. So seashell, even the petals of the flower follow the Fibonacci numbers. Ano pa ba? It's almost like a divine set of numbers, ano, for some reason. So as early as the time of Plato and Aristotle, nabanggit na yung golden ratio na yan. So even the great pyramids of Giza in Egypt, it follows the Fibonacci design. And it's also very good use in photography, as you can see. No? Pwede nyo i-follow yan. So your subject can be in this space, all right? And then you can have a negative space here. Okay. Tapos kapag portrait naman, kunyari, website page mo, portrait ang style, ano? So the design can be, this one is your title, okay? And then you have a photo here, and then you have the text here. Pwedeng ganyan. Makikita niyo yun sa Canva, ganyan yung mga design, ano? Kung nagka-Canva design kayo. Pag naka-portrait naman yung website mo, pwedeng dito yung title mo. Okay? And you have a huge photo here if you like, or your logo, pwedeng ganyan. Or the title can be here, dun sa side na yan. There are many applications of this mathematical ratio. Tawag dyan ay golden ratio or Fibonacci ratio. Okay. Ito naman ay yung, well, this is just about symmetry. Basically, yung nasa left, nasa right, pareho. So, parang pag tinupi mo sa gitna, magmamatch yung mga points. Or you get the same mirror image. Parang mirror image. Yung ganun. Mukhang yung iba sa inyo nagawa na to. So, it kind of also uses leading lines here, no? And okay, paano naman pag mga tao? You can apply the rule of thirds here. Put the eyes on one of the converging points. Yan. So, a little bit tilted, slanted to the right. Yan. Of course, depende sa shadow. In this case, kasi yung light nanggagaling sa saan side pa, saan yung shadow natin. Okay, sa right side, ano? So, pwedeng gano'n, kaya may konting play of light here. Okay. Another sample of the rule of thirds used in portraits. Okay. Sa left side naman nakaslant yung tao natin, yung subject. And tsaka eye level, eye level yung angle ng camera. So you don't always have to be standing up when you're taking photo. You can try experimenting on different positions like nakadapa, nakaupo, okay? Eye level, pwede din looking down, looking up. Yan, if you remember, no, yung very intimate naman to. So, by extension, yung tumitingin din ng photo na to, feels very close to this person kasi very close yung angle niya, no? And may mga shadows dito na makikita tayo. Ganda nung pagkakakompose ng lighting niya. Okay, this uses the Fibonacci design also. Hindi siya rule of thirds. Kasi pag dinivide mo in 3 ang photos na yan, it does follow the rule of thirds then, where in this dominant eye lands on a point of convergence. Fibonacci din siya kasi buong face occupies the square part of the golden rectangle. Yan. So, pwede, napaka-close niyan, ano? Dito will, parang halos magkadikit na yung face ng girl tsaka lente ng camera dyan. That's quite close. Or, magzo-zoom ka, pwede din naman. However, with zooming, of course, magbe-blur yung subject mo. So, with this clarity of the face, I can imagine baka malapit yung phone sa kanya. Kasi pag zoom lang, lalabo yan, di ba? Ay, pag phone ang gamit. Okay, so this communicates intimacy, closeness. Ito naman, very nice, no? Yung use of objects around as frame. This one communicates mystery, diba? Where you see just half of the face. This uses the Fibonacci golden ratio, wherein the entire person, including the fan, occupies the square part of the golden rectangle dun sa left side. And you have this negative space at the right side for magandang lagyan niya ng text, title, mga ganyan. No? So you have intention to put titles there, maganda siya. And it communicates mystery, diba? Kasi kino-cover yung half ng face a little bit with the fan. Okay, magfo-food reviews tayo. So magandang makita paano mag-a-apply yung mga rules of composition sa food. Okay, here are some samples. So yung isa nasa right side, this one, it kind of uses half of the Baroque style. Yung kanina madaming grid lines, yung may mga women kayong photo nakita. It's just one part of it. Ano? Ang important dito, symmetry. No? Like, what do I mean by symmetry? If you fold this picture in half, okay, yung grid lines sa taas at sa baba, they complement or they're balanced. Okay? So again, if you notice, the ingredients or key ingredients are kind of close to the points of convergence. Doon nalilid yung eyes mo. Yan, dito. On the left photo, rule of thirds applied, wherein the main dish is placed on the points of convergence. Example, pag naka-portrait yung iyong phone, or patayo yung kuha mo. Hindi siya landscape, portrait. Okay, other grid guides that you can use. Ito, ang ganda nito, isa yung soup, yung may triangle ka nakita. So, doon sa points ng triangle, lalagay mo yung food mo. Ayan, application ng Fibonacci, yung golden rectangle natin, ano? If you notice, yung yung cheese at saka yung bread, nandoon siya sa mga smaller squares, okay? And the rest of the food, they're in the large square. Ayan. Ganda. Pati yung pati yung pag arc ng grapes, it kind of follows as well the shell, yung curving ng shell sa taas. Yan, pwede yan, no? Okay, paano pagpatayo? Paano gagamitin si golden rectangle or shell? Shell ratio pag nakapatayo ang photo. Ayan. So, if you notice, yung lalagyan ng pepper dito, ang chili, medyo inislant yung lalagyan, ano? So, to follow the shell shape. In a way, it kind of lead the eyes as well. Okay, very interesting on the right photo. It kind of combines a lot of composition tips. So, meron kang leading line using the fork. May negative space ka below for the title. Okay. Tapos, yung main ingredient is somewhat framed. Ginamit yung mga plates, yung mga boards for framing the main ingredient. Ito siya. Yan. All right. So, okay. For next week, ayan, I would like you to take a photo of your favorite food. Ayan. So, apply nyo yung mga composition rules natin. Mamaya, papadala ko sa email yung these examples that I have showed you. And you can practice with them this week, okay? Your assignment is to bring a photo that you yourself have taken. Kailangan favorite food nyo. Kasi bakit food? Kasi next week po, ang ating topic ay food review. Ayan. So we're gonna start writing our review next week. Okay? So bring a photo of your favorite book. Here are some samples. Ayan. Ang ganda nung sa bacon, ano? Kasi close-up na close-up siya, tapos parang ang daming lines. Ayan. So pwedeng ganyan din ang style. Okay? Some really close-up shots of food here. May question po ba? What if I don't have a favorite? Any type of food then. Perhaps you can be a little bit adventurous and try something new together with your family and take a photo of it and bring it to the class. Okay? So, it doesn't have to be your favorite food. Okay, baka malimit kayo masyado. See, I realize that now. So, try to take a photo of a food that you're interested in reviewing. So, kasi i-review nyo siya, magsusulat tayo ng review about that photo. So, might as well try something you haven't tried before. Or try your favorite food, pero try something from a different restaurant perhaps, or compare, ganyan. So sabi ni Athena, she doesn't have a favorite kasi madami siyang favorite. Having a hard time choosing? O sige, bring a few then. Bring more than one if you like. Bring more than one photo of your favorite foods. Foods, pwede naman. Okay, so question before I end the call or end our class, ano yung favorite niyong composition technique na shinare ngayon? Leading lines, plural thirds, Fibonacci, ano pa ba, Baroque. Yung Baroque, medyo madami siyang lines, ano. But just to remember that yung Baroque style na yun, medyo complex yun. It takes a bit of skill. Try with muna kayo sa rule of thirds. Anong favorite nyo dun composition technique at something you would want to try? Sige, chat nyo nga sa akin. Parang gusto ko i-try yung composition technique na yan. Mga lines lang yun, na angles. Okay? Composition also involves contrast of colors. Okay? Use of shadows. Dark, light tones. Part din yun ng composition. Meron na ba kayong napupuso ang composition technique? Niisip pa? O, sige. All right. See, that's your assignment this week. Okay, very easy. The assignment will take just 5 minutes to do. Take a photo. But apply one of the composition techniques. All right? So, papadala ko yung video tsaka yung samples na binigay ko with the guide. Ayan. So baka after this class, makita niyo yung grades, ano? Nagfi-filter na siya sa eyes niyo. So try to be creative about it. Okay, you can go zoom in, zoom out, and try many different composition techniques. So you can combine two, actually. Leading lines and rule of thirds, pwede nga i-combine. How about try mo yung Fibonacci? Sige, try mo yung Fibonacci. I might send an extra video if you're interested to know more about, understand the Fibonacci numbers. I have a great video to show about that one. May konti kayong math, di ba? Alam niya na siya. Okay, that's it for today's creative writing class. Have fun taking photos of your favorite foods. Not just one, but several, pwede din. And bring it to our next session, okay? As we talk about food reviews. Bye-bye. Enjoy your lunch later. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Athena. Bye, Charles.